Hey everyone, tonight I am working on another React interview challenge, and the prompt is here on the screen. It says to build an app with an input, a button, and a list. When a user types into the input and clicks the button, it is added to the displayed list. So essentially just creating a to-do list app, and this is a question that could be asked in a React interview. So I'm going to kind of challenge myself and see if I can get that to come together here fairly quickly in this video. What I have open here is just a boilerplate, simple React template. There's really nothing in here except just some very minimal CSS to give us kind of a dark mode screen to work on and just kind of reset the margin and padding and things like that. So we're basically starting from scratch. Gonna take one more look at the prompt here. We need an input, a button, and a list. Okay, so getting into putting this together, we'll start with getting those elements on the screen, and just to give us a title at the top, we'll do my to-do list, H1. Move this over just a little bit so we can see better. And then, let's see, next we'll want the input and the button, and we'll want the button to say add item, and actually I want to wrap all of this in a form. Forgot to start with that, so we'll put that all together as one form, the input and the button. Alright, and then next below that we need the list, and just for the sake of kind of seeing what we're doing here, I'll make up a couple to-do items down here. We'll put those in. We see that they're rendering pretty quickly. Okay, so it looks like we've got the elements on the screen that we need. So next what we want to look at is setting up our state. So I will need to import this at the top so we can use the useState hook. And so let me think through what we'll need here. We'll need at least two separate pieces of state. The first one can be one that will keep track of what's happening with this input here. So every time the user types into the input, it's going to trigger an on change and set that state variable so we can keep track of what that is. And then we're also going to need one that's going to manage our list down here, which we're probably going to want that to be an array. So let's do that one first. We'll handle the array, and I'll just call this to-dos, and we'll set that to an empty array for now. We might put something in it in just a minute to give us our first element, but we'll leave that empty for now. And then our other one, what do I want to call this? I'll just call it new item, set new item, and that'll be an empty string for now. Okay, so now starting to work on the functionality with these. Let's handle the input first. So the value is going to be equal to, or assigned to, the new item state variable that we created, and then on change is set new item to, and I forgot, I need to pass in the event here, so I gotta go back and do that. There we go. And we set that to e.target.value, and that will set that up. So basically on every key press as the user types it, sets the state to be equal to what is in the input field. Okay, so I think that takes care of that input. We'll skip the button for just a moment and make sure that I've got this mapping set up first down here, because this is an array. So to-dos dot map each to-do element, and we want to render a list item not linter, list item. And actually, it might have, sometimes when it does that, yeah, it auto imports linter up there, so we'll get rid of that. Okay, so for each to-do element in the array, we're rendering a list item. Now, let's think about what's actually going to be in the array up here. I don't want to put just simple strings, because that's not very practical to what a real world application would be. What we're probably going to want to have in here instead are objects with some sort of ID property, which we can handle in a minute. Just set that to 1 for now. And then we'll call this item. And set that equal to a string, which will represent the actual to-do element that we need there. So in here, now that we're doing the map method, we can set the key equal to the to-do.id. So now we'll have a unique key for each element that's rendered, and then to-do dot, I think I called that item up here at the top. Yeah, so that should work. Good, and then we see workout rendering, so that mapping is working correctly. Do a second example one just to make sure that's working. Yep, there we go. Okay, so the mapping is working now. Now let's handle the functionality of when we click this button adding to the list. So on click, and as we saw it do just a second there, it's going to automatically submit the form when you click on that button. So we do want to pass in the event so we can prevent the default, and I'm going to handle the logic of this in a separate function up here just to keep things clean. So we're passing in the event. We'll call prevent default to stop that submit from happening. Now what we want to do is set the to-dos. We do want our previous value of state, so the previous to-do list. We're going to spread in that array, and then we're going to add an object. Now, in a kind of a more formal application or a bigger scale project, we probably wouldn't be either manually typing in IDs. You'd be using something maybe like Nano ID or UUID to automatically generate IDs for you. I think what I'll do right now, just to keep this quick, is just kind of manually generate a random number here. So that'll give us a random number there for each ID, and then we want to set the item to be equal to whatever the user has typed in here, which is our new item state variable. And I think that should handle the logic for adding the item. Let's see, then we want to set new item to be back to an empty string. Accidentally opened that up. Let's get that back here. There we go. Okay. So that when the user clicks this button, it'll delete what's ever in here and not leave that sitting in there. Okay, workout groceries, let's say clean kitchen. Let's see if this is working. Yeah, there we go. So we're able to do the functionality here. Maybe need to vacuum as well. Test that one. Good. And if I refresh, it's leaving the 2 in there that I started with. We can leave those for now, but yeah, it looks like we've got the functionality in place. Maybe I'll add just a little bit of styling here so this looks nicer. Let's see, we can put everything in the center, and let's change up those list items a little bit, make those look nicer as well. So I will do list style of none. Maybe give them like a border bottom of 1 pixel solid gray, and just a little bit of space in between the margin. We'll do 10 pixels on the top and bottom. Yeah, that's looking a little bit nicer. Okay, so the prompt really only had that in place. We just need to be able to add items to our list, but the logical next step for an app like this would then be to be able to delete the items as well. So let's see if we could also get that added in here. So let's wrap this in I'll make this just a p tag. Oh, wrap. And then I can add another one down here. And again, if I were doing this in a more formal application, I'd probably bring in an icon or something for this, but we'll just use an X right there. I'll give this a class name. We'll call it delete button. And then we'll make this display flex and justify content. Space between, just to push those to the ends. That looks a little nicer. And then I'll target that delete button class. Maybe we can make this red and a cursor pointer. Okay, so that looks a little bit more like an actual delete button. Okay, so let's figure out the logic for this. So when the user clicks on this, I don't think we need to pass in the event this time because this isn't actually a button, so we're not going to have an issue with preventing the default. So we'll just call this delete item, but we do need to know which item it wants to delete. So we will need to grab this ID in order to do that. So I'm going to pass that in right here. And because I'm doing that, I do need to make this like this, so it won't call the function immediately. So it'll wait for the click. Okay, now up here I need to create that function, and we're passing in, or we're accepting an ID parameter there. Now, how do we want to do this? We need to set our to-dos array to be and I just noticed I made this singular. I'll just fix that up here so I'm being consistent. Okay, set prev to-dos to, we're going to want to filter our previous array, each to-do. So we want this ID that we've accepted here, we want to make sure that it does not equal the current to-do dot ID. And I think that's all that we would need to do. Let's see if that's, yeah, so it looks like that's working. I can add things back in, clean, laundry, mow the lawn. It looks like we've got the functionality working. We can delete the items. And yeah, I think that's basically what we would want to be able to do. Hope this video was helpful. As always, if you have thoughts, comments, suggestions, feel free to let me know. I am happy to hear feedback and what we could do to make this better.